the chandeliers at Ashford Manor, caught the morning light and scattered it across the room in small, trembling pieces, the way they always did at weddings held there. Nathaniel Ashford had chosen this venue for that very reason. His mother used to say that light was the truest witness at any wedding, that it saw what people sometimes tried to hide. He hadn't thought much about that saying in years. He would think about it again before this day was over. He stood at the front of the room in his tailored black tuxedo, a wedding ring resting between his fingers, waiting for the moment he had been told, by every part of his careful, well-managed life that he was supposed to want. Beside him stood his bride, Victoria Lane, poised and lovely, her veil catching the same scattered light. The room was full. Rows of folding chairs held family, friends, business partners who had flown in for the occasion. Everyone was smiling the practiced smiles people wear at weddings. The smiles that say, "How lovely," even when something quieter sits underneath them. Then, from somewhere near the back, a small voice broke through the hush. "Don't marry her!" It came from a little girl, no older than 3, in a soft blue dress, her dark curls bouncing as she pushed her way between the folding chairs. Her small hand was already raised, pointing straight at the bride, her face streaked with tears and fierce, uncomplicated conviction. Her name was Daisy, and the woman rushing after her, mortified, whispering apologies as she moved through the crowd, was Daisy's mother, Rosa Alvarez, who had worked as a housekeeper for the Ashford family for the better part of 6 years. Nathaniel felt the room hold its breath. He looked down at Daisy, this small, trembling child who had somehow found the courage to say, out loud in front of 200 people, the thing that grown adults so often swallow instead. "Sweetheart," Rosa said gently, kneeling beside her daughter, her voice thick with embarrassment. "We don't say things like that. I'm so sorry, Mr. Ashford. She gets frightened in big rooms. She doesn't understand." But Nathaniel raised a hand, not unkindly, asking for a moment. He crouched down to Daisy's level, the way you do with a child who is more frightened than she is bold, though in truth she was quite a lot of both. "Why shouldn't I marry her, Daisy?" he asked quietly, gently, as if the whole room were not still watching. Daisy sniffled, wiped her nose with the back of her hand, and pointed again, this time toward the small kitchen doorway at the side of the reception hall, where the catering staff moved quietly, unnoticed, the way staff so often are at grand events. "She was mean to my mommy," Daisy said. She yelled at her. "She said mean things. And my mommy cried in the closet and she thought I didn't see, but I saw." The room did not gasp dramatically, the way rooms do in stories built for drama. It simply grew very still, the particular stillness of people quietly recalculating what they thought they understood about someone. Nathaniel looked up at Victoria. Her face had gone pale, though her composure held. The composure of someone well-practiced in holding it. "She's a child," Victoria said carefully. "Children imagine things." "She imagined the closet?" Nathaniel asked, not unkindly but plainly. "She imagined the yelling?" He turned to Rosa, who was still kneeling, her hand resting protectively on her daughter's shoulder. "Rosa, is this true?" Rosa hesitated. She was a woman who had learned, over many years of quiet work in other people's houses, that the truth was not always a safe thing to hand to the people who employed you. But she looked at her daughter's small, tear-streaked face, and something in her settled, the way water settles once it stops being shaken. "Yes," Rosa said softly. "It's true. Last week in the hallway outside the pantry, I dropped a tray. She said some things I won't repeat in front of all these people. Daisy was with me. I didn't think she understood what was happening. I suppose children understand more than we give them credit for." Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. He thought of his own mother, gone now 11 years, who had raised him in a small house, before the Ashford fortune had ever come into their lives, back when his father was still building the company one difficult year at a time. His mother used to say that you could learn everything you needed to know about a person by watching how they spoke to the people who couldn't do anything for them in return. He had heard that saying 100 times as a boy and mostly forgotten it as a man, the way wealth sometimes has a way of dulling the sharper lessons of a simpler life. He had not forgotten it today. "Victoria," he said, and his voice was calm, not cruel, the voice of a man choosing his next words with great care. I think we need to talk. Not here, but we need to talk. Victoria's composure finally cracked, just slightly at the edges. Nathaniel, you cannot possibly be considering calling off our wedding because of something, a toddler said. I'm not considering it because of what she said, Nathaniel answered. I'm considering it because of what I now know is true. There's a difference, and I think you know that difference better than most. He turned back to Daisy, who was watching him with wide, uncertain eyes, unsure now whether she had done something brave or something terrible. Nathaniel smiled at her, a real smile, the kind that reaches all the way to a person's shoulders and settles them. Thank you for telling me the truth, Daisy, he said. That took a lot of courage. Most people your age, and a good many people my age too, would have stayed quiet. I didn't want you to marry someone who's mean to my mommy, Daisy said, her small voice steadying now. My mommy is the nicest person. She reads me stories every night, and she never yells even when I spill things. She sounds like a wonderful mother, Nathaniel said, and meant it fully. The guests in the folding chairs were murmuring now, quiet conversations passing from row to row. But Nathaniel did not rush. He had learned, in the 11 years since his mother passed, that the moments which mattered most in life were rarely the moments people hurried through. His mother had died slowly, over the better part of a year, and in those final months, she had taught him more about patience and honesty than the previous 30 years of his life combined. She used to hold his hand in the hospital and tell him, Nathaniel, don't build your life around people who are only kind when someone's watching. Build it around the ones who are kind in the hallway when they think no one sees. He had not understood fully what she meant until this very moment, standing in a room full of white roses and expensive tuxedos, watching a small girl in a blue dress teach an entire wedding party more about integrity than most sermons manage. He addressed the room, his voice steady and unhurried. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I know this isn't how any of us expected this morning to go, but I think it's important, on a day that's supposed to be about building a life together, to make sure that life is built on the right foundation. I'm not certain right now that it is. I hope you'll understand if we pause things, rather than rush forward into something I no longer feel at peace about. There was no shouting, no dramatic collapse. The way these moments sometimes unfold in stories built for spectacle. Just a quiet, dignified pause. The kind that mature listeners, the ones who have lived through their own share of difficult, necessary conversations, would recognize as the harder, more honest choice. Victoria left the room some minutes later, her veil still trailing behind her, her face composed even as something behind her eyes had clearly shifted. Nathaniel did not chase after her, and he did not gloat. He simply let her go, the way you let go of a beautiful, well-wrapped gift you have discovered. Too Late was empty inside. He turned back to Rosa and Daisy. Rosa, he said, I owe you an apology. I should have noticed sooner. I should have asked more questions about how the people in my own home were treated. My mother would have been ashamed of me for missing it. Rosa shook her head gently. You couldn't have known. Mr. Ashford, people like her know how to smile at the ones who matter and forget the ones who don't. It's not your fault you didn't see the smaller smiles. Perhaps not, Nathaniel said, but I'd like to do better. Starting today. Weeks passed, quiet and unremarkable in the way that real healing often is. Nathaniel did not fall dramatically in love with Rosa in some hurried, convenient turn, the way old movies like to wrap these things up. Instead, something slower and steadier grew, built on small kindnesses, on shared coffee in the kitchen some mornings, on evenings when Daisy would climb into his lap uninvited and ask him to read the same story 3 times in a row, and he would, without complaint, because he had learned that patience was not a burden but a gift you gave the people you loved. He learned Rosa's story slowly, the way you learn a person you respect rather than the way you consume a person you're infatuated with. She had come to this country 15 years earlier with very little, had raised Daisy largely on her own after her husband passed unexpectedly, and had built her life brick by careful brick on hard work and quiet dignity. She did not need saving. She had never needed saving. She simply needed, at long last, to be seen clearly by someone who mattered. A year later, in a much smaller ceremony, with far fewer chandeliers and far more laughter, Nathaniel married Rosa in the garden behind Ashford Manor, the same garden where his mother used to grow roses of her own. Daisy, older now and steadier on her feet, served as the flower girl, scattering petals down the aisle. With the same fierce concentration, she had once used to point a small, brave finger across a crowded room. Before the ceremony began, Nathaniel knelt down to speak to her, just as he had that first difficult morning. "Do you remember what you told me a year ago?" he asked her. Daisy nodded solemnly. "I told you not to marry her." "You did," Nathaniel said, "and it was the bravest, kindest thing anyone had done for me in a very long time. Sometimes the people who love us most aren't afraid to tell us a hard truth, even when it's frightening to say it out loud." Daisy considered this with the seriousness only small children manage. "My mommy says the truth is like light. It's already there. You just have to be brave enough to let people see it." Nathaniel smiled, thinking of his own mother's words about chandeliers and hidden things and honest light. Some wisdom, it seemed, passed quietly from mother to daughter, from one generation to the next, waiting patiently for the moment someone needed it most. "Your mommy," he said, "sounds like a very wise woman." "She is," Daisy said simply, taking his hand as they walked together toward the garden, toward the quiet, steady kind of love that doesn't need chandeliers or spectacle to prove itself real. Only the simple, daily choice to be kind, especially in the hallway when nobody thinks anyone is watching at all.